When you've got your Thanksgiving table all set, you've got your turkey, the stuffing, the cranberries, the mashed potatoes, but you need something to sop it all up. That's where the dinner roll comes in. And I'm going to show you how to make my version. It's super buttery, it's tender, it's got an ever so slight sweetness to it. It is fabulous. And if you have leftovers, makes great sandwiches for the next day. As always, the recipe will be provided in a link below. Any equipment we're using that may be odd, I'll provide that as well. But just to give you a quick overview, here I've got, you don't have to do it this way. I've tested it both ways many times. It works great. In this case, I have half all-purpose flour and half bread flour. I like that little bit of tenderness. When you use the bread flour, it definitely has more of a little bit more structure. So it depends on what you feel like. Okay, we've got a little bit of sugar or honey. I'm going to use honey, but I wanted to make the point that sugar works fine if you don't happen to have any. We've got our instant yeast, we've got our milk, we've got our fine sea salt, an egg, some softened butter, and we're going to need a little bit of water. That's it. This goes together pretty quickly, and it's just so yummy. And the whole house smells so good. But at Thanksgiving, is that really an issue? Not really. So I'll set up over at the mixer, and we'll get going. So here's a couple of simple tips. You've got your water and your milk nice and warm, but then you go and you pour it into your stainless steel bowl, which is always cold, unless you've done something to heat it up, I guess. So what I do, just to make sure that I don't overly cool down my liquids, is I make my milk and my water, or whatever liquid I'm using, just warmer than I actually need it, so that when it's in this stainless steel bowl and it drops its temperature, I still get to be in the exact right range that I need to be for my yeast. We've got our instant yeast. Now, if you do not have instant yeast and you have regular yeast, you do have to proof that. We are going to add 1 egg, and that egg's going to be scrambled. Let that mix together for just a moment. And now our butter is softened. It is not melted. So we're just going to take little bits and drop it in. This is 6 tablespoons of butter, but you really don't need to worry about that. It'll be in the printout. We've got our flour that's been measured. Now, I always take my flour and measure by weight, and I weigh in grams. If you don't have a scale, I really hope if you're going to bake lots, I hope you get one. But in the meantime, I made sure to convert the recipe to cups as well, so that you don't have to worry about converting it yourself. We're going to come up just a little, and the last thing we're going to add is our salt. And that's it. This is going to work in our mixer. It's going to probably take about 6 or 7 minutes to knead. And I'm not going to bore you to death with that. So I'll let this go, and I'll show you what it looks like when we're closer to where we need to be. I turned it down, so hopefully you can hear me. Now you can see that what we have is a pretty shiny, smooth dough ball. It's sticking just a little bit to the bottom. That's fine. For this particular recipe, we're going to stop here. Look at that. Really nice. Now, this is an enriched dough because it's got an egg and it's got butter. So it does take a little bit longer to get to this point. Can you do this by hand? Of course. I've done it. Do I want to do it by hand? I don't. So make of that what you will. It does, anytime you're adding butter and eggs or anything like that, that's going to be some more elbow grease if you're going to do it by hand. But it absolutely can be done. So this is the bowl that we had our flour in. We're just going to grease this bowl a little bit with some olive oil. Any oil works fine. We don't use, like vegetable oil and things like that anymore. We've moved to avocado oil and things like that because we're making every effort to adjust as we learn more. That whole thing about, what is it? You know better, you do better, whatever. Okay, so we give our bowl a little spritz And we're going to transfer our beautiful dough. We're going to cover it and we're going to let it rise. Now this dough is for a dinner roll. We want it to be super tender. So in this case, we're not going to do the whole pile of stretch and folds like we do with many of our other breads. We're not going to do that this time. So that makes this one even easier. I just give it a little shape, and that's really mostly out of habit. I don't tend to start my bread on its bulk ferment without giving it a little shape. That's just a habit more than anything else. Cover this up. If your home is cold, we've had a huge temperature drop here, what you want to do is make sure you've got a nice cozy spot for this to rise. I have a proof setting on this oven. We also have a countertop proofer that works beautifully. If you don't have one of those things, the microwave is a great place to rise your dough. If you want to make sure that you don't get a crust on anything, you put a little bit of warm water in there, and that's perfect. It's a nice sealed space, and it'll rise beautifully. And if you already have one, it costs nothing. So that works out great. Nice and cozy. Back in 1 hour. Okay. We're back. We are ready to shape our dough. Now, here's the thing. You can go absolutely wild when you're shaping your rolls. You can make cloverleaf rolls. You can make fantail rolls. You can do all the different things. I mean, that's a whole different thing all by itself, because I was considering showing a few of those, and then I realized I don't have time to show all the different varieties that I know. So I thought we could maybe do one specialized recipe one day with rolls and just shape them up and have some fun with it that way. So there's that. We're going to make 12 rolls, and we're going to go the simple route. And if you want to talk about some fancy shapes, let me know, and maybe I'll make another batch and I'll show you a few that I know right off the top. So ordinarily, if we wanted to be very exacting, we would weigh this and divide it by 12. But I am the only one that's crazy enough to worry about that, usually. So I'm going to eyeball it. And so you go right down the middle, divide in half. Divide in half again. But you want to make sure you don't have a tiny tail. So that's what I'm doing, is I'm adjusting so that it's pretty close to even in its width, so it doesn't kind of go like this, because that's going to give you the wrong size. And so for the most part, just like that. It's going to be close. Exact? No. That's why we would weigh. But I'm trying not to be such a stickler. I'm told that I could lighten up a little. So we divide that in 4, and then we divide each one of these into 3. And that gives us more or less our 12 rolls. Now, if any looks just obviously off, you correct it. Like I see I have an error right here. This is why I weigh. Ugh. Make fun of me, but you don't have this problem when you weigh. Anyway, that's funny. You don't have this problem when you weigh. Anyway, let's see if we can get this closer. At the end of the day, does it matter this much? No, I am nuts. I think we can all agree that I'm crazy. So I have a few that are just a little on the tiny side. So we're going to grab our little tiny friends, and then we look for the ones that just appear to be too darn big, and we steal a little from them, and then we just stick them right on there. And then we move on with our lives. That's good enough. Okay, the most simple, basic roll. Make sure that you're not going to stick to your board. So a little bit more flour, but you don't want so much that it affects how much flour you have in your dough. And we're just going to roll, pinch it shut. Okay, and then we roll again, pinch it shut. Okay, then we're sealing the bottom. we're using this part of our hand and we're just dragging, let's do it slowly. We're dragging it this way and it creates a little belly button in the bottom that seals it. And that's perfect. And then you get a really nice round. Now, how big do you want your rolls? Do you want little tiny ones that are just so cute and everybody gets a little roll? Or do you want them to be a little more substantial so that the next day when perhaps you have some leftovers, that's when they make the perfect little sandwich. Make sure that you're shaping on a part of your board that does not have a lot of flour, because it's important that you're sticking a little bit. That's what's going to help you seal. That awful little robot vacuum just turned on right in the middle of my working and scared the soul out of me. I hate that thing. Anyway, real life in a goofy place. Now, we are not making bread where we're looking for giant holes. So we are purposefully putting some pressure down because we want our rolls to be buttery and soft and delicious, and we don't want any gaping maws in them. Okay? So again, to show you again, take it, close it, pinch, 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 turn it the other way, roll it again, pinch, pinch, pinch. Okay? So you get this little cigar. Now you could even bake it like that if that's the shape that you liked. It's cute. But I'm going with round. And we leave a little bit of room. Now these are going to rise, so they will very likely touch. If you don't want them to touch and you want them to remain in a very exacting shape, you can bake them in a muffin tin. I don't do that because I kind of like it when they touch, because that little spot in between is so soft and it's beautiful. And when you pull it apart, it smells good. Okay, so I'm gonna keep doing this. Now we're gonna let this rise for a very short time. The oven is set to 375. I'm using a convection oven. And we are going to egg wash with a little bit of milk. That's going to make sure that we get a beautiful color, and it's perfect. Now I'm using a bench scraper because I am allowing that sticky. I'm sticky here, and I'm sticky on purpose. I want that so that it allows me to seal. If you try to make your round and seal on top of the flour, your roll will squish around the board and you won't seal. You won't get the cute little belly button underneath that we're looking for. The final rise for these sweet little babies is short, 15 minutes maybe. The oven is already heating. These will bake in the center of the oven. And because they're not very big, they don't take very long. You don't need these just for holidays. Next time you just feel like having a sweet little soft dinner roll that makes you happy. You can even make these in advance, shape them, and put them in the freezer. That works great. So next time you have company, my glasses are slipping off my face. Want to hear something embarrassing? I'll share. These ridiculous glasses that I'm wearing, I haven't been to the eye doctor in forever and 3 days. And I have been avoiding going. Not for any particular reason. I'm just been through a lot and I'm tired of doctors. So I figured I was going to solve all my own problems. And I was going to wear these stupid glasses from the pharmacy. And I've been wearing pharmacy glasses forever. Well, I broke the ones I had. I mean, if I told you what I paid, you wouldn't believe me. The glasses I'm currently wearing, the glasses I'm wearing, honest to God, from the dollar store were $1.50. And guess what? I can see. Now, can I see great? No. Are they sliding down my face? Yes, they are. Should I cut the nonsense and go to the eye doctor? Yes. But hear me out here. If I do that, that means my husband was right. And I don't want to start setting a precedent. If I let him be right about this, who knows where it ends? Now, I'm going to assume he's not going to hear that. He says he watches my videos. I don't believe him. Okay, here we are. So we're going to get a piece of plastic wrap, spray it, and lay it over here. And I'm going to put this to stay warm and cozy on top of the stove that is warm at this point. Let it rise for about 15, 20 minutes most. They just puff a little bit. We're going to egg wash them with our milk and egg and bake them off. And it's going to be great. One of the things I wanted to mention is when you're working with eggs in your baking, whether it be for an egg wash, anything, a custard, French toast, it doesn't matter. Use a room temperature egg. It will incorporate better for you. I'm gonna make our egg wash. You can have a choice of course you can just use egg and water. I use egg and milk because it gives a bit more of the natural sugars from the milk and it gives a nicer color. This is silicone. I like them. The reason I use silicone, by the way, I also have the really nice French natural hair brushes. The problem is they get really hard to clean. You know, up against this part here, I find it extremely obnoxious because you can't put them in the dishwasher. Silicone, I know it's not as beautiful and vintage and rustic as the beautiful French ones with the natural hair, which I love. I actually hang them on the wall because they're pretty, but I don't use them anymore. I use silicone. There you go. So we'll be back when we're ready to go in the oven. We'll give it a quick egg wash, and we're almost done. Okay, so we're going to take our egg wash, make sure we're completely broken down. No yolk hiding, no yolk left behind. And we're just going to give it a quick brush. Now remember, you are in complete control with how big your rolls will be. Now it is currently not Thanksgiving here. It's just a random day and I'm sharing my recipe. So I made them a little bigger so that I could have an egg sandwich. That's kind of what I want, an egg sandwich. And I'm hoping that these will come out to be just the right size for my happy little egg sandwich. Another thing, which has nothing to do with my wanting of an egg sandwich. You can take this time while you're putting on your egg wash and you can decide if you want to add, do you want to add sesame seeds, poppy seeds, a little bit of dried garlic, whatever, a little flaked salt, whatever you want. It's your bread. This is going to go into the oven and I'll show you what we get. Rolls. Rolls. Separate them. Ooh. That's the part I love. Look at that. Oh. Ah. The entire house smells like butter. They are so tender. These baked in 25 minutes. And you'll know when you really start to smell your bread or whatever it is you're baking really strongly, that's a sign for you to get up and go check your oven. I don't care what the recipe says, what time it says. If you're smelling your end result, if you're smelling baked bread, if you're smelling baked cookies or cake, go check your oven. These have to cool for just a few moments. I'm going to slide them off. I let them sit here and just settle for about 3 to 5 minutes. Then I move them onto the cooling rack because you don't want them to get steamy underneath. And then we let them cool. Generally speaking, the rule is you let bread cool. It is at its best when it has a chance to completely cool and all the steam has been driven off. When you open up bread that is still steamy hot, even though it's so romantic, you know, you open it up and the poof of steam in your face and the melted butter. The problem is that it causes it to be super, super gummy. And in a roll, I guess it doesn't matter as much because you're going to probably eat the whole thing. But if you open up a loaf of bread that you just took all that time and you slice into it while it's screaming hot, you've destroyed the entire thing. It gets really gummy and the center is ruined because the end of the baking is actually in the driving off of the steam as it cools. It's important. So I'm going to let this cool for just a moment. I'm going to move it onto the rack so we don't get condensation underneath on their little tushies. And I'm going to go get eggs and I'm going to eat an egg sandwich. That one right there, because it's a little bigger than the rest. Perfect egg size. I hope you love this. This is such an easy recipe. The whole house smells like butter. It is so light and airy and beautifully flavored. Just a slight little bit of sweetness. The next morning, you make sandwiches or whatever it is you want to do. These are delicious. Shape them how you want. Get as fancy as you'd like. Keep it simple. It doesn't matter. It's homemade and it's made with love. And I hope you enjoy it. Thank you for coming and spending time with me today. It means a lot to me. It really does. I've been having the best time. I get to speak to people I've never met before that you guys like the same things I do, and it's added quite a bit to my life, and I'm truly appreciative. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.